Hello everyone, this is Dave from Dave's Recent Things. A little while ago, I posted a question on my YouTube community asking all of you out there, what did you want to see next on my channel? I had a ton of replies, so thank you for all of your replies. I have made a list, and I will be working off that list with some upcoming videos. For today, I'm going to be creating an everyday wreath, which was one of those requests for you using colored burlap. Why don't I just get started and I'll show you what I made. I'm going to be using an 18-inch wire wreath frame and this 12-inch by 10-yard roll of gray burlap. These 2.5-inch wired ribbon, I have 3 different patterns, along with some florals from Michael. I have roses and hydrangeas, along with just some greenery, pipe cleaners, and some cable ties as well, along with my regular crafting utensils to create this project today. I'm starting off with cutting my pipe cleaners right in half. I'm going to be using a lot of them today, so I'm just going to create a large pile of that. And then with my burlap, what I'm going to start it off with is just pinching the very end of it. So this is going to be the start of our wreath. Now, all I do is I pinch, gather it all together, grab that half pipe cleaner, and wrap it around. So what we're doing right now is we're prepping our burlap to attach to our wreath. And today's method is the bubble method, and I'm going to do a little prep work to my burlap, and I'm going to measure out 10 inches, and then I'm going to walk my fingers all along that burlap, gather it all together, and create a little poof, if you will. So right now I am just gathering, I'm just twist tying it together with those pipe cleaners, and I am measuring it out for 10 inches. So when we put it onto the wreath, we're going to create a little bubble like I just showed you there. So again, I'm measuring out my 10 inches. So I'm doing this in 10-inch increments. I'm gathering up that burlap, wrapping it around with that half pipe cleaner, and I do not cut the excess of that pipe cleaner. I actually have all of my stems facing in one direction, facing down, and then I just keep going. I measure out that 10 inches, gather that fabric, grab that pipe cleaner, wrap it around, and I just continue on for the entire 2 rolls. So I'm doing both rolls in this method, and this is just preparing the burlap to attach to our wire wreath frame. And as you can see, I keep going and going. Now to prepare our burlap, I am placing a half pipe cleaner every 10 inches. So I have 12-inch wide by 10-yard burlap. And there's about approximately 33 half pipe cleaners per roll that I used, and I used 2 rolls in total. You can see here I'm finishing one end. I'm just going to cut off that excess there. We don't need it. I'm just going to clean it up just a little bit. And then here is our little burlap garland that we just made, if you will, to create those little bubbles. They have our little poofs in there. And one thing that I do like to do, this is not mandatory at all, this is optional. With those ends, I just grab my hot glue gun and I just put a little bit of hot glue right at the end there, just to keep everything secured, everything together, and we get no fraying at the ends. I like doing this. Again, it's optional if you want to do it or not. And to attach to the wire wreath frame, I'm going to be using those anchors and the 2 middle wires. So we have our little V shape of our pipe cleaners, and I'm going to attach them around the anchor and the 2 middle wires. I'm just going to flip over that wire wreath frame, making sure that anchor is right in the middle, and then I'm going to twist it a couple of times, just making sure it's nice and secure. And once I flip it back over, you can see it's anchored there. It's not going to go anywhere. So we have our little poof, and then we have another pipe cleaner. And with that other pipe cleaner, we are going to wrap that around the center 2 wires there. So again, we have our little V shape of our pipe cleaners, flip over that wreath frame, and then I'm going to twist it around a couple of times, making sure it's nice and secure. And then I'm just going to move it over towards our first one. And then I'm going to create my little poof there, or a little bubble, just by attaching that next pipe cleaner attachment. And I keep going, moving all around, attaching those pipe cleaners in there, bringing them close together. And then when I flip it over, you're going to see how that bubble is created. There's our bubbles right there. I've got a couple created right now. I'm just going to finish doing off that whole section there, and you can see how our little burlap bubble wreath is coming along with that first section. And for that first section, I'm just going to make sure they're all nice and even. You don't have to measure it or anything, but what I like to do too at this point is I like to add some hot glue on those pipe cleaners just so it doesn't come out. Now for each section, I am doing 10 attachments in between each section. So we have one attachment at each anchor and 10 attachments in between each section. This is what I'm doing for this 18-inch burlap bubble wreath. And here you go, we have our anchor at one end, anchor at another, and then we have those 10 attachments creating those bubbles right in between. And there is one full section all complete. And now all I'm going to do is I'm going to move on to my next section, and I'm going to follow the same pattern all the way through, attaching those pipe cleaners to it, moving it towards the previous one that I just attached, and that's how you create your little burlap bubble. And of course, you can do this with deco mesh as well. You don't have to just do this with burlap. It works exactly the same. And here we go. I am attaching my last attachment here, and I'm just wrapping that pipe cleaner around, adding that hot glue down so everything is nice and secure and not going to unravel. And here we go, our big reveal of our burlap bubble wreath. Look at that. I just love this gray burlap, and I loved this method using the burlap as well. Of course, now we're ready to make our bow and attach everything else to it. To create our bow, I'm using 3 different 2.5-inch wired ribbon, and I am cutting these at the 24-inch mark. So you can use whatever pattern or color that you want to create your bow. These are my choices today. I have 3 different patterns, and again, these are all 2.5-inch wired ribbon. I'm using 3 different ribbons. So ribbon number 1, I'm cutting 3 pieces at 24 inches. Ribbon number 2, I'm cutting 2 pieces at 24 inches. Ribbon number 3, I'm cutting 3 pieces at 24 inches. So that gives a total of 72 inches of ribbon that's needed to create the bow that I'm going to show you how to create today. And what I'm going to do with all of our pieces, I'm just going to create little dovetails at the end just by folding it over and cutting on an angle. If you want to leave just a straight cut, that's totally up to you. I love doing dovetails, so I'm going to do that for all of those pieces. And I'm going to be dovetailing both ends as well. Just again, cutting on an angle to create that dovetail. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take each of my pieces and I'm going to fold them in half. Now I'm not folding right at the middle. As you can see, I'm still leaving a little loop because I don't want to crease right at the middle. So I'm just folding them in half very lightly, and I'm just preparing them to create our bow. And I'm going to grab my ruler once again, lay down that piece of ribbon, measure out to 5 inches, and then I'm just going to gather at that 5-inch mark, hold it with my hand, and now I've created a loop at the top and 2 loops right at the bottom. So we created our first loop. We're going to grab another piece of ribbon, measure over that 5 inches, pinch it together, and then we're going to hold it right in my hand. And I'm going to continue doing the same thing for all of those pieces. And I just alternate with the different patterns, gathering it into my hand, and then I'll take a cable tie, wrap it right around that center, but I'm not going to pull it too tight just yet, because we're going to add a pipe cleaner. It's a full-size pipe cleaner right in there, and that's what we're going to use to attach our bow to the wreath. So once that's all in there, I'm going to pull it tight now, making sure I gather all of that ribbon in there. And then, of course, you know, it's fluffing time here on Dave's Wreaths and Things. I'm going to fluff that bow a little bit. I'm going to spread out those tails really just to make this 3-pattern ribbon bow pop. And here we go. Of course, I can't stop fluffing. I have a problem. Hello, my name is David, and I have a problem. And here's our bow ready for our wreath. And here is that pipe cleaner that we attached to our bow. And I'm just going to feed it right through the burlap, right to the other side of the wire wreath frame. And that's how I'm going to attach my bow on there. I'm just going to flip it over, feed that pipe cleaner through the 2 middle wires, and then boom, here we go. Our bow is nice and secure. I like the placement, so I'm going to cut off the excess, make sure it's nice and tight, and then I'm going to add, yes, some more hot glue on the back. And at this point, I am using 2 hydrangea florals and 2 roses, along with some olive branches, and I'm just going to cut those up into pieces that I know I'm going to use instead of having the long stems. Of course, you can see me there like I always do. I can't resist fluffing up my bow, but I'm going to get all my florals, like these hydrangeas, ready, along with my greenery, all ready to do my dry run. And a dry run, if you're new to my channels, I always like to lay out my florals onto my wreath, which I call a dry run without gluing, and then just arrange everything around to see where I want to place everything. And for this, I didn't end up using the hydrangea leaves or using the roses leaves. I just used the olive branches. And here you go. Once I have my dry run completed and I'm happy with it, then I just start using my handy dandy little tool, my hot glue gun, and I start gluing everything down in place. I'm gluing those hydrangeas in place. I'm gluing those olive branches in place just around my bow. And then, of course, I add on those beautiful roses. Now, these florals came from Michael's. I know they're a little bit expensive, but the outcome was amazing, and they were a buy one, get one free. So that's how I justified spending the money for those florals. But once everything is all glued down, it just looks absolutely gorgeous. I'm so happy. But I'm going to take this to the next step, and I'm going to finish the backside using this felt roll. And this is just gray felt that I found at my local dollar store. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little glue on each side at the beginning, and then I'm going to wrap that around the backside of the wire frame. Now, I burned myself 1,000 times doing this, so please be careful. Use your little silicone fingertips if you want. I kept going and going and going using my fingers because you can't see the glue underneath, so I burned myself 1,000 times. So just a warning for you all out there, just be really careful. But it was totally worth doing this. All I'm doing is I'm just adding a little hot glue to the wire, and then I'm wrapping that felt all around the wire, and you can see the end result. It hides all of that glue, all of those pipe cleaners. It just completely finished off the wreath in a beautiful way, and what a gorgeous wreath. Of course, I'm going back to that bow to fluff it up. You know I'm going to do it. But I enjoy doing it. I know a lot of you out there enjoy the same thing. And our beautiful bubble gray burlap wreath with those hydrangeas, with those roses, and our olive branches, just for an everyday wreath. I think this is so perfect. It's so big. It doesn't really fit on my crafting table. You can kind of see cords and everything off to the side there. But I just had to show this off. And of course, here it is hanging on my storage door, that gray burlap, those white roses with the white hydrangeas, and that ribbon that I just love the combination of. I am so happy with this everyday wreath, and I hope you are as well. Thank you so much for joining me today in creating this beautiful everyday wreath. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can be notified whenever I upload a new project. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye for now.